And what I would tell people, the more you learn about Bitcoin, the closer and more bullish you get. I have yet to find somebody that said, I spent 6 months learning about Bitcoin. I did a deep dive. I talked to all these different authors, all these different analysts. I went to NYDIG. I went to Galaxy. I talked to Natalie Brunell. I talked to Michael Saylor. I've done 6 months of deep dive research, and I hate Bitcoin.
Right.
I've yet to meet one person to do that. Everybody that does that says, okay, I understand this. I have to own some of this. And Bitcoin is like tacos. Okay, you can't have just one, Natalie. Okay, once you go dig yourself into the taco chip bowl, you're gonna have more than one.
That's right.
That's what's going on.
Once you understand Bitcoin, being bullish isn't a choice; it's inevitable. That's the latest insight from Anthony Scaramucci, former White House communications director and founder of SkyBridge, in a recent interview with Natalie Brunell. Anthony emphasizes that Bitcoin is no longer just a speculative investment. It's now widely recognized as a legitimate asset for both Wall Street and individual investors. Institutional interest in Bitcoin continues to rise, especially with major players like BlackRock pushing for Bitcoin ETF. The 2024 U.S. elections could also play a significant role in Bitcoin's future. While the current administration appears to be less favorable toward the crypto industry, making it challenging for Bitcoin to grow, a change in leadership could bring a more supportive stance, potentially boosting Bitcoin's adoption. Be sure to stay tuned until the end of the video as Anthony explains why Bitcoin's global adoption may be closer than we think.
Stop. You don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
This is where you got to bring Saylor on, right? Because he's talking about it being 7% of the world's market capitalization, which would imply a $13 million per coin price for Bitcoin. He thinks you can get there in 10 years. And so
do you?
When I see the problem is, I guess I'm like more conservative than him. He's a lot smarter than me, but I'm more conservative than him. So he gets mad at me when I say, well, Bitcoin could be I'll tell you a funny story related to my book. I finished the book by saying, so that's my case for Bitcoin. You should go out and buy 1 to 3% of your assets. So Michael says to me, well, how much do you own? 55% of my net worth is tied up in Bitcoin. And he says, wow. Some of it is just not selling anything, Natalie. If you catch something and it goes 10 to 1,
grows.
Right? Let's say you have, let's say you bought 15%, it goes 10 to 1, and your other assets are growing. But guess what happens? Bitcoin becomes a bigger part of your pie, right? And I haven't sold any Bitcoin, thank God, knock on wood. But so Michael says to me, well, what are your assets? Well, I'm 55%. Well, why are you telling people to have 2%? If you're 55%, why are you telling people? Moreover, let me say this to you. If you tell somebody to own 2% of Bitcoin, that means they have to come up with 50 other ideas as good as Bitcoin, right? So let me ask you, Anthony, do you have 50 other ideas in your mind as good as Bitcoin? No, I don't. Well, then what the hell are we putting 2% at the end of this book? So I had to go back to the publisher. I had to rewrite the back part of the book.
Oh, you did?
I did. I rewrote it. I said, okay, listen, some people are recommending 1 to 2%. I personally have a lot more than that. I don't know if I gave them the exact number I'm giving on your podcast.
Wow.
But I said, the truth be told, this is one of the big ideas. And so you may want to think about owning more than the requisite number, and be a little bit more concentrated in Bitcoin. So for me, I'm wildly bullish long term. I'm not worried about the concentration issues because we have some ETFs right now. I think the ETFs, again, from a historical perspective, will have provided a catalyst for further adoption. Mm-hmm. The state of Wisconsin bought $150 million worth of Bitcoin a few months back. Maybe it was 4 or 5 months ago. And, the thinking behind that is, hey, there's going to be a portfolio asset allocation mix that's going to include Bitcoin someday. Someone's going to say, Natalie, you're a fund manager? Yes, I am. Okay. How do we judge you? Well, we're going to judge you by stocks, bonds, alternative investments, hedge funds, gold, and there'll be a small sliver for Bitcoin. And so the state of Wisconsin is saying, if I'm not long Bitcoin, I'm short Bitcoin. That's coming. Why don't I start buying it now before the wave comes of all the people that feel that it's important or imperative that they need to own it? I would like to see a deeper well of ownership in Bitcoin. And I would say this to you, and perhaps you would agree with me or perhaps you wouldn't, even if those people had to buy it through the ETF. So even if there were people that are in the middle class, lower middle class, they were buying $100 of Bitcoin a month or $100 a quarter, and they were, the only way they could really access it is through the ETF. And even though it has some detriment in terms of centralization, who cares? At least people now are building something, I was giving flack about Bitcoin being 63,000 3 years later, but your dollar is 68 cents. Right. So you lost 32% of your purchasing power. You see what I mean? Yeah. So Bitcoin didn't lose any of that. It's still right there. You see what I mean? And so what I would say to you is, again, I don't know the answer. That's why I'm being so cautious. But I would say this to you. I would say we have to push this. This is something that Wall Street will help with, but we have to push the idea that it's a diversifier and it's a hard asset. And if you are an hourly worker like my dad was, you're losing to the man.
Right.
Because the man owns assets and you don't. And Bitcoin is a way for you to get a piece of the action.
Right.
And again, it's broken up into 100 million Satoshis per coin. Just start buying some Satoshis.
Bitcoin could skyrocket to $100,000 within a year, according to Matt Hugin, fueled by a perfect storm of institutional interest and favorable market shift. Since January 2024, spot Bitcoin ETFs have seen $2.11 billion in inflows, bringing their total assets under management to $60 billion, an unmistakable sign that institutional demand is driving this rally. These ETFs provide an easy entry point for investors, further boosting Bitcoin's potential as a hedge asset and attracting serious capital. The November 5th election could be a major catalyst for Bitcoin's growth. If Donald Trump wins, his pro-Bitcoin stance may help accelerate regulatory clarity and adoption, opening new growth opportunities. On the other hand, Kamala Harris's crypto-friendly approach could also provide a bullish path, supporting broader digital asset adoption. With both candidates holding positions favorable to crypto, the momentum behind Bitcoin's $100,000 target is stronger than ever. Now, let's hear what Anthony has to say.
Gensler, Elizabeth Warren, their minions are steeped in the artifices of these agencies and these institutions, and they've slow-rolled the industry. So where you should be bullish, and I know you are bullish because I listened to you, is that despite everything I just said, we did get a ETF. Despite everything I just said, we do have forward momentum in adoption. We're at 4 or 5% adoption now for Bitcoin, which puts us roughly to where Web 1 was in 1999. And so if you said to me, when I made my first Bitcoin investment, you said, okay, U.S. regulators are going to trash Bitcoin for the next 5 years. And where is Bitcoin going to go? Well, it's going to go from 6,000 to 60,000 over that period of time. I would take that as a win. One of the reasons why my peer group wants Trump to win is they see him, that's a Bitcoin trade. They see him as being pro-Bitcoin. He'll put people in these agencies. He'll knock out all the anti-Bitcoiners or anti-blockchain people, and he'll fortify these places with pro-growth of the industry. And that would dramatically help, of course. One of the risks about her is that she hasn't openly articulated her strategy. Now, if you had Mark Cuban on here with you, he would say something similar to what I'm going to say, that, former President Trump represents other existential dangers, which would be bad for the overall marketplace. My old boss had a great line. I'll share it with you. Money likes cowardice. Money is a coward. And what do I mean by that? Money goes to where there's the least amount of risk. Money goes into the United States because it's the safest legal system. It's the most liquid. It's the deepest capital market. And so we like predictability. And if Trump is talking about potentially pulling out of NATO or ending the independence of the Fed, which he frankly has talked about, that would be cataclysmic for the overall economy. He may be putting pro-Bitcoin people in place, but if he's taking away the Fed independence or he's locking in to 100 or 200% tariffs, he said that John Deere, who's already moved stuff into Mexico pursuant to NAFTA, we're going to tariff you 200%. It would cripple the economy, and it would be a form of regressive taxation. So to me, I am very pro Bitcoin, very pro technological growth, blockchain, etc. I want to get there in a bipartisan way. I don't want to make it overly political, but I'm also an American. So whoever wins wins. I'm not a sore loser. Trump wins, God bless. I certainly want him to be successful. He's going to be your and my president if he wins. Same thing with Harris. I tell people who, they see. Here's the other thing: we see these things sometimes as so binary, and we see these things as cataclysmic. I don't agree with Elon Musk that this is the last election if Harris wins any more than I would agree that it's the last election if Trump wins. The system is pretty sound. We'll be able to protect the system. I do understand that Bitcoin is for the people and that Bitcoin is a libertarian concept. And Bitcoin is actually, it's sort of, have you ever heard of the group Moms Against Drunk Driving? Okay, so Bitcoiners, it should be bad. Bitcoiners against the drunk driving of central bankers. Okay, so I sort of feel like the central banking community has been drunk driving with our fiat currency, and they've wrecked it. You took $35 an ounce in 1971. It's $2,600 an ounce today. Our purchasing power, it's crazy, but these numbers are accurate. $2 of 1971 dollars are worth $100 today. Okay, in terms of purchasing power, and so we've destroyed the money. And they're drunk drivers. So when you look at Bitcoin, you see this libertarian concept, power to the people, can't trust centralization, but what we could trust is a decentralized hard asset that nobody can manipulate. And so you want it to be that. So when you say BlackRock and they're going to centralize it, or Fidelity and they're going to buy it and put it in an ETF, some of, frankly, the legendary Michael Saylor, who should be known as Michael the Great One, okay, who's done so much for the industry. Some people have accused him of that. They say, he owns as much as BlackRock owns at this point, and there'll be great centralization. But I respect the view. I don't want to poo-poo the view, but I would say step back, look at it from several 100,000 feet, look at it from a satellite picture. The Saylors and the Fidelities and the BlackRocks of the world, if they own $50 billion of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is an asset class, Natalie, if you accept what I believe, that Bitcoin is an asset class, well, then Bitcoin should be a 15, 16, 20 trillion dollar asset class. Gold is a 17 trillion dollar asset class today. So therefore, they're not going to eat up the asset class. They'll be a component of it. There's large stores of gold by central banks. There's large stores of gold, frankly, from institutions. There's a gold ETF, GLD, that you can store gold. Okay, but it hasn't really overly impacted the marketplace for gold. And I think that the same thing is true for Bitcoin. It's just that we're here at this very early stage, only 5% adoption. So we're sitting around thinking, okay, this could cannibalize us, but I wouldn't overly worry about it. I think it's legitimate to look at, but I think you have to look at where the potential size and scope is of the market, and then you can see that argument's not going to hold up.
Anthony Scaramucci believes that Bitcoin empowers individuals worldwide by giving them full control over their money. He views Bitcoin as a reliable option that resists manipulation and control. Anthony also argues that the entry of large companies like BlackRock and Fidelity into the Bitcoin space won't negatively impact its value. Instead, their involvement could actually strengthen it. With Bitcoin adoption still at just around 5%, he sees tremendous potential for future growth. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.